Hey guys, it's BHA here bringing you a new video. So the great folks over at Smonet had sent me over a couple of their door locks and a gateway for me to check out and kind of show you guys. And so today we are going to look at the SMUS-MD door lock. Now this is a Bluetooth door lock, but it does come with a Bluetooth Wi-Fi gateway which will allow us to control it remotely. And utilizing the TTLOCK app, like some of the other door lock manufacturers use as well, this will give us the ability to hopefully get this thing set up in Home Assistant. Here we go. As you probably already saw on Smonet's website, it's about 150 bucks, maybe a little bit more. That's a pretty good deal for a lock and gateway combination. But if you still wanted to get it on Amazon, you can pick it up for almost 170 bucks. So it's a little bit more on the pricey end, but of course you have that comfort that you might get with Amazon.
All right, so let's do a quick run through everything we're going to cover in this video. So of course, for starters, we will unbox the gateway and the lock. Just kind of show you what all you will get in there. Once we do that, then we're going to get this lock installed in the door. Once we have that done, we will add our gateway and the lock into the TTLOCK app. And then, of course, once we got it installed, then we'll kind of go over that configuration in the app just to show you what your options are and what things you can do with it. Then we're going to move into how we are going to go about getting the lock set up in Home Assistant. So in order to do that, we'll have to set up the TTLOCK developer account. So we'll kind of walk through that. After that, then we are ready to set it up in Home Assistant utilizing REST API. So TTLOCK, they have a developer set up with REST API, which will give us the ability to control this lock. And once we have all that set up, then of course we are going to see it in action. So let's get started. All right, so we got both boxes here. On the left, of course, is that little gateway. It's just basically a Bluetooth bridge that will allow us to control the lock remotely since it's only a Bluetooth lock. So if we get this thing opened up here inside, it's pretty lightweight, not a lot to it. You basically just get the hub and a USB-C adapter. So it doesn't even come with the brick. You'll need to come up with your own brick. I got tons of those around, so that's not a major issue there. There's some instructions to kind of walk you through how to get that gateway added into the TTLOCK app. Now on to the lock. So it came in two different colors. We have the black, I think they actually call it black gold here. I'm not really sure where they came up with that, but we basically have the solid black colored door lock here. We're going to get this thing opened up. So you get your instructions and your templates if you needed to cut holes in your door and whatnot. Obviously, we're just replacing an existing lock, so hopefully we won't have to make any new holes to get this thing installed. Now, this does not have a handle on it. It is just a basically a replacement for your deadbolt. So we will leave the existing door handle in place and just replace that deadbolt up above it. All right, so let's see what we got here. Here is the inside unit itself. Looks like the top is kind of where it stores the batteries there. And then here's the keypad that will go on the outside, and there's the little wire that'll kind of connect it to the other side. You also get your little mounting bracket that will help mount that to the door. It even comes with a screwdriver. All right, there's your actual deadbolt. There's all your screws and everything that you'll use to mount this. It even has a drill bit that comes with it if you needed to actually drill any holes. And that's pretty much it. We are ready to move on to the next step and get this thing installed. All right, so I'm installing this on my back door. As you can see, there's obviously an existing lock already there, so we're just going to basically remove this deadbolt lock here at the top and replace it with the new Smonet lock. It's kind of old and dated, it's definitely rusty, so it's certainly time to replace it. We'll start by removing the screws. All right, so as you can see here, we've got it out of the door. So we have everything removed. We'll just basically replace it with all of the new gear. First things first was to install the deadbolt. Got that screwed in there, everything looks good. Next part is the keypad on the outside. You basically just screw that in with the bracket on the inside. Before you mount the inside unit, you have to decide where this door handle is going to be, if it's on the left or the right. Since we're looking at the left-handed side, we want to make sure you set that inside the unit here. So if you look down in the bottom, there's an L and an R with a little toggle switch. You just switch it to L because we're going for left-handed. And then, of course, once that's installed, then, of course, boom, it lights up. Everything looks good. This thing runs on 4 AA batteries. So we'll see how long these batteries are going to last. Who knows? But for the time being, everything looks pretty good. Let's move on to the next step and get this thing added into the TTLOCK app. All right, so don't get confused. I know this is a Smonet lock, but this does not utilize the Smonet Home app. This uses an app called TTLOCK. Download it here. You'll create an account if you don't already have one. It will send you some sort of verification code to your email address. You'll enter that in here, and then you're ready to go. First things first, we're going to get that gateway or hub added into that. So we'll click on the 3 bars in the top. We'll select gateway, and now we can choose what model we have. We have the G2, which is the Wi-Fi version. Basically, when you plug it in, it immediately goes into pairing mode. It'll flash red and blue lights on it. So then we'll hit next here and give it a second to find that gateway. And there it is. We'll select it here. Let's plug in our Wi-Fi credentials here. We'll give it a different name for the gateway name. We'll just say Smonet Hub, say OK. And then, of course, it immediately starts looking for door locks. I think in order to get the door lock added, you'll have to actually push a button on the keypad to kind of put it in pairing mode. Let's see here, and you can see once you did that, it almost immediately found it. Now we can kind of give it a different name if we want. We're going to say backdoor lock. And that's it. It is added into the TTLOCK app. Our gateway is added in there. So let's move on to the next step and we'll go over the configuration. All right, so to kind of go over the configuration, or at least what the configuration options are in the app, we'll start by looking at the gateway. So if we go over here and we click on gateway, you can kind of see the hub. It basically just shows that it's connected and what Wi-Fi is connected to. It does list that there is one lock nearby, which obviously is the one that's connected to it. And of course, you have the ability to update the firmware on it. And it looks like it does need to be updated. We'll go ahead and wait on that for now. But basically, back to the actual lock settings themselves. You can open and close it. My main complaint about this app is, as you can see, it shows the lock there, and the icon is a closed lock. That icon does not update. It does not change whether the door is locked or unlocked, which I thought was kind of strange, because I feel like the lock should show unlocked when it's unlocked, and then of course locked when it is in the locked mode. It does not do that. It just stays the same no matter what. So you can't just visibly look at it and determine whether or not the lock is unlocked or not. So it's kind of weird. But other than that, get off my soapbox here for a minute, and we'll look at everything else. So if we just go into the settings here of the lock itself, if you click on the basics, it tells you the battery power, as far as how much battery is available. It also gives you the ability to change the name or create a new admin passcode. But if we continue down the way, if you click on gateway, you can see what gateway it is connected to. And then, of course, you can enable or disable remote unlock. So if you want to be able to utilize the gateway and unlock the lock remotely, you can enable that. By default, it is turned off. You also have the option to auto lock, which after a certain amount of time, you can actually have the lock automatically lock the door if you want. Lock sound, which is kind of up there towards the middle. If you turn that on, of course, the lock makes more of a lock sound. Let's see what else we got. Lock clock. So if you want to make sure that the current time, or that the lock knows what the current time is, so that it will be logging correctly, then of course you can update that here and calibrate the time. I think diagnosis and upload data are pretty much the same. It gives you the ability to upload information about the problem you're having, or logs and whatnot from the lock itself to TTLOCK, so they can help determine what the problem might be if you have to open some sort of ticket with them. And then let's see, lastly, of course, you can update the firmware on the lock if you need to. Mine looks like it's currently up to date. The other one down there is unlock notification. So you can actually get alerts when your lock is unlocked or locked. If you want those notifications, you can turn that on as well. But other than that, that's your main features. Let's see. The other thing that you can do, of course, here is passcodes. So you can create new passcodes. They will auto-generate those for you if you want. You can create custom ones with whatever code you want as well. You can have some that are just set up under certain times, and then you can even have one-time use passcodes that you'll hand out, and then as soon as that is used one time, it's pretty much gets deleted. It's not used anymore after that. So that's pretty cool. That's a nice little feature as well. But that's pretty much it for the configuration options in TTLOCK for this lock. Let's go ahead and move on to the next step, and we'll set up our developer account and see if we can get this thing moving towards working with Home Assistant. All right, so I ran across this forum a while back about how you could basically integrate your TTLOCK device into Home Assistant. And so it's basically utilizing their developer setup and REST API. So for the most part, it should be easy to do. Looks like we'll have to go through several steps to make it work, but I think we can do it. For starters, we're going to create a developer account. So you can utilize the same email address that you used with the TTLOCK app account that you did on your phone. But this will be a completely separate account, so you'll have to generate a new one. Once you have that account created, we have to create an application. Now, I already have one created, and it's already been approved by TTLOCK. But basically, you'll click on Create Application here, and you'll fill out everything. It does require you to put a logo. I'm not really sure why. I guess you could pretty much put anything there. I used my BHA logo, but you could pretty much use whatever, I would assume. But once you have all that information filled out, you will basically have to wait for them to review the app. It took about 24 hours to get a response back on them reviewing this application, so it probably won't happen right away. So just be prepared that once you get to this point, you'll probably take a day or so before you hear back from them on getting that set up. Once you get your app approved by TTLOCK, the main information that you need to make note of is the client ID and the client secret, because you'll need those for the remainder of this setup. Something else that you'll want to do that I didn't seem to find mentioned anywhere in the instructions, that I did have issues until I made this change, was go back to TTLOCK app on your phone, go under the settings for your user ID and give it a nickname. So mine is tied to my email address, so I just put the first part of that in there, and that's my nickname for that account, and that worked fine. So you'll want to make sure that you give your account a nickname, because I think that's what you'll use whenever you're running all these different commands accessing the API. All right, so the next one, it gets a little lengthy. These commands are kind of long. I'll have everything in the description below so that you can hopefully copy and paste it. And I'll also have links to the various pages where I got all this information from as well. But basically, I had to get the date in milliseconds before I ran the command, because I could not get it to do it while running the command. So I did it separately, and then I pasted everything in there with the client ID and the secret, and then just updated the date there at the end. And when I did that, it was allowed me to register my user. Now, I already have mine registered, so I got an error down there at the bottom, but it would give you a new username, which is, again, this is kind of different. I'm not sure if this should have been done first before I set up the original account that I added the lock to, but this is a whole new user that it's going to basically create with some characters at the front, underscore, and then your username. So going forward, that's the account that you're going to use, but that's the one that it has to create. Once you have that command, then we're ready to move on to, let's look at here, step 5, where we're going to get our token from the API. So again, we're going to basically copy and paste this command in here, utilizing that new username that we just created, and our client ID and our client secret. We put all that information in there, and it's going to generate an access token. And you're going to need to keep that access token. All right, so now that we have our access token, then we're going to go back over here. Let's see, we're on to step 6 now. We want to see if we can list out our locks. Now, before you do that, there's something else you need to do that is not listed here in these instructions, and that is we basically need to transfer our lock from the account that we originally created to this newly created lock account that we created right here. So you'll basically go into settings here. You're going to click on transfer locks. I've already done it, so you don't see it here listed. But if I hadn't done it, it would have that lock listed there. I would select it. It would ask me what account I wanted to transfer it to. And of course, it just kind of walk you through all that. It's pretty easy to do. It comes back and says that it's done and everything. And then once you do that, of course, you will log out with this account, and you're going to log in with that newly created account. So a little bit of confusion there. It's a little strange how we had to go about setting that up. My guess is if we would have done the developer setup first before we even added the lock in to TTLOCK, we might have been able to do it with one time. Okay, so once we're logged in with that new account, basically we're going to try to list out the locks. So this is step 6 right here. So we're going to do this last command here. We'll have to do the date command again. We'll do it separate, but basically you put that date command in, then we'll paste in everything else. And it should generate all kinds of information on your lock, from the lock name to the lock ID. The one that was most important to us is the lock ID, because that's what we're going to use for basically the remainder of all the rest commands that we're going to use in Home Assistant. So save that lock ID somewhere so that you have it, and that's pretty much it for this configuration. We're ready to move on to Home Assistant and actually build out everything there. All right, so we're in Home Assistant now. First things first, we're going to create a couple of sensors. So we want to create a sensor for lock battery, so we can keep up with how much battery it has, and then we also want to keep up with a sensor for the lock status, so whether the door is locked or unlocked. So we're going to do all that here. I've got them already listed down here at the bottom. They're basically the same. They're going to be both type REST. For the first one, I gave it a name of backdoor lock battery. I set the scan interval to 600 seconds, so 10 minutes is probably enough, because I'm going to update those as I make changes in the lock itself anyway. So as long as it checks just every 10 minutes or so, it should be fine. And you can actually make it longer if you want. Obviously, the more often that you check the battery usage or check status on various things of this lock, it's going to drain the battery that much faster. For the resource template, I've put that whole curl command into my secrets.yaml file, but I will paste it in the description below so that you get an idea of what you need to use in order to get the battery status. And then for the value template, they call it electric quantity, so it's value_json.electric quantity. And then we're going to do the same thing for the lock status as well. It's still type REST. I called it backdoor lock status and set the scan interval to 10 minutes as well. And again, I have the resource template listed in my secrets.yaml file. And then the value template for this one will be just value_json.state. That particular command only returns one specific attribute, so that makes it easy. So now that we have those two sensors in place, we're going to create a couple of shell commands. And of course, I have not put those into my secrets.yaml file yet, but I have the entire curl command listed out here. I did one for unlock backdoor and one for lock backdoor. They're basically the exact same command for both, but at the very end, one of them says lock/unlock and one says lock/lock. I'll have all of it in the description below, so it should make it easy for you to use. And then when those shell commands are set up, then I'm going to create a couple of scripts. Now again, this is not necessarily the right way to do it. This is just the way that I've configured it. It gives you the ability with the scripts then to basically not only run that shell command, but we'll also be able to update our sensors to show the correct status on the lock as well. So as you can see, I've got two scripts here. I have one for locking the back door and one for unlocking the back door. And just to kind of run through those, I basically did two things. First things first, I called that shell command, and then I gave it a delay of 5 seconds. That gives it the ability to have time to lock or unlock the door, because it's not immediate. I wanted to make sure that it did have a chance to update before I tried to get the current status of the lock. So after the delay of 5 seconds, then I'm going to call Home Assistant.update_entity, and that's where I will update the status on that lock status. So I did a command like that for unlock backdoor, and I did one for lock backdoor. And so once those scripts are set up, the last thing I'm going to do, and again, this is just totally my preference, is I went to my lock.yaml file and I've created a template lock. So with this template lock, I was basically able to monitor the lock status with that sensor that we created at the beginning. And I used an if statement for that. So basically it says if the lock status is 0, then the door is locked. If it's 1, it is unlocked, else it's unavailable. Once that's done, then I basically just called those various scripts that we set up. So for the lock function, I called the lock backdoor script, and then for unlock, I called the unlock backdoor script. Once I had all that info in there, and so, I mean, that's a lot to put into Home Assistant to try to make all this work, but once all that's in there, basically just go over, check your configuration, make sure everything looks good, and then you can restart Home Assistant for the changes to take effect. At this point, let's just move on to the last step. We'll kind of see it in action. All right, so here we are. On the left, I have Loveless pulled up with the lock. On the right, of course, you're looking at the lock itself. Currently, it's in the unlock status, but if I hit this button here, and you can see it did turn and automatically lock that door. And then, of course, if I hit it again, it will unlock. And that's pretty much it, guys. That's the end of the video. It's pretty responsive overall. I mean, for $150, you can get the lock and the gateway and be able to control this remotely from within Home Assistant. It does utilize TTLOCK's cloud, so I know not everybody's going to be on board with that. But hopefully, at some point, they will build out a full integration into Home Assistant that maybe will do away with that cloud option. Nonetheless, take a look at Smonet's website, see what all the locks and other options that they have. They do some other smart home stuff besides locks as well, so you want to check everything that they have out and see what all they have to offer.
As always, I want to thank everybody for donating to my Buy Me a Coffee link. Every little bit helps. If you haven't had a chance, jump over to my spring merchandise page and check out all the Burns home automation merchandise. And if you're interested in VPN service, check out IPVanish. I'll have the link in the description below. You can jump over to their website and see what deals they're currently running. And if you're interested in buying and selling stock, check out Robinhood. I'll also have a link in the description below that if you use that link to sign up with Robinhood, you and I both will get a free share of stock. As always, if you like the video, please subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comments below. And if there are any videos out there that you're looking for that I don't already have out there, let me know in the comments as well. And I'll see if I can't get something put together for you guys. Otherwise, I'll see you guys around.